Welcome to 60 Minutes with a Woman, the podcast where we sit down with remarkable women. In each episode, we dive into their journey, the challenges, the triumph, and the lessons that shaped them. Get ready for raw conversations, inspiring stories, and actionable insights to fuel your own success. Tune in because every woman's story deserves to be heard. Kayla, welcome to 60 Minutes with a Woman. I am beyond happy to have you here. You are a prestigious artist, and I was really looking forward to invite you on the show. So thank you for being here and sharing your story with 60 Minutes with a Woman today.
Thank you for having me.
Kayla, you're a multi-genre vocalist. You're also a teaching artist. You grew up in the Bronx, and you're of Puerto Rican descent. You performed in prestigious places in New York and beyond. And I'm going to go ahead and take my notes to talk about all the things that you've done, because it's you performed at Central City Opera. You were Ruth in Pirates of Peasants. You also performed at the Bronx Opera, and Carnegie Hall was New York City Opera Chorus in Vessels of Light. You are a member of Arturo O'Farrell Bronx Banda, which blends Latin jazz and cultural storytelling. You performed in venues like in the Lincoln Center, Casita Maria's South Bronx Culture Festival, and you're a teaching artist at Casita Maria. And you also started recently, you opened your studio in Washington Heights, and it's called For the Muses Studio.
Yeah.
I really am excited to have you here today, and I'm sorry because I probably butchered still. We train guys on all those names, but I probably butchered half of them, but you can, I will write all your information in the description down below, so you can go ahead and check everything for yourself. It's a pleasure having you here, really. Thank you so much. I really want to get to know you more. Can you tell us a little more about your upbringing, where you grew up, the early influences in your life?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. And it's such a pleasure to be here. I grew up in the Bronx, and I grew up with my mother, spending a lot of time in my grandparents' house. My grandparents came to New York from Puerto Rico in the 40s and met in the 50s. And I remember being surrounded by a lot of music growing up. I remember being surrounded by salsa, merengue, and a lot of music on guitar that my uncle would play. We would often listen to the Beatles. We would sing along to Elvis. And I would perform often for my family in the house. In my grandparents' place, there's a staircase with a small landing. And ever since I was very small, I was always performing, on that as a stage in front of all my family. So yeah, it was a very musical and very positive and memorable upbringing.
It sounds wonderful, and I can honestly picture you with your family having this, partaking into this beautiful time with them, into music. Were they artists?
Yes. So
they were?
So in part, my grandpa, he loved singing as a young person. He actually attended Casita Maria in Harlem when he was growing up there as a kid. And he told me that he would take voice lessons there. And he even, from legend has it that he was overheard having lessons in a different studio and was offered an audition for West Side Story before the film came out. However, yeah, it's a pretty wild story. However, he wound up joining the army before having a chance to audition, and life had different plans, but he always loved singing throughout all of his life. I grew up singing with him, and my uncle as well was a musician. He was a guitarist and a singer, and when he was serving in the Army, he would often entertain his fellow troops by doing Elvis impersonations. And
he really had a knack for it.
Yes.
It was in him. Wherever he went, regardless of what he was doing, this was just, that he had to express. It's beautiful. When did you realize that you had a talent for singing?
Oh my goodness. I suppose I always was singing whenever I could. And there's a story that my family will tell me that they were driving with me in the backseat of the car soon after the film Titanic came out. And I was singing in the backseat My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion.
Yes.
And they were astounded that I knew all of the words and that I was singing in tune, and and that it sounded pretty good for 4 years old or however old I was at the time. I suppose I always had just the interest and the passion for singing, and it wasn't until I got to about high school age that I auditioned for LaGuardia High School in Manhattan, and upon getting my acceptance into that school, I thought kind of officially, I suppose this must be a gift and something that I should pursue.
Can you tell us more about LaGuardia School? Is it a school that is focused on artists?
Yes. So LaGuardia is a school for music and art and performing arts. If you've ever seen the film Fame, there's an 80s film and TV show Fame that's based on the High School of Music and Art that LaGuardia eventually evolved from. So many notable artists have attended that school over the decades, and it's an honor to be part of that lineage as well. And I could not be more grateful for the education that I received while I was there, as it's been invaluable to the rest of my career as a performer.
Absolutely. I adore the fact that your family was able to recognize your gift and your talent and invested in it. Mm-hmm. It's wonderful because right now, they're not regretting their choice at all. And, often we notice that our children have talents, and sometimes we just don't understand how much, it's important for them to be surrounded by teachers and other, students to just help them grow in what they do and evolve and become just what they're supposed to become. So I'm so glad you had this childhood and your parents were able to pick on it. But at the same time, you were born in a family of musicians, so they couldn't let that go.
Absolutely, yes. And with LaGuardia, it was interesting because I don't think my family really knew about it. Mm-hmm. And it was a mutual friend who loved singing as well, who shared about the opportunity with me. And yes, my family was very supportive, and they drove me to the audition, and they helped me figure out how to make my way from our house in the Bronx all the way into the cities to study. And I just feel so fortunate to have received that education in a New York City public school free of charge. It's absolutely incredible what the school has to offer.
It is absolutely incredible. I didn't know that it was free of charge. This is something that we need more of it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what was a regular week for you like there? What kind of classes do you have? This is for me out of curiosity because, watching movies, you understand obviously that it's more pronounced on the artistic level, but do you still have the regular classes of math and geography and things like that, or do you tell me more? What does the week look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was an entirely holistic education, complete with math, English, literature, sciences, all of those core classes. But we also had our discipline classes, our major classes. Yes. So we had in the vocal studio, vocal instruction, we had choir requirements, we had sight reading and music theory. And we had elective classes as well. So we could choose ensembles to perform in. I performed my first productions there in the opera workshop class, and I also took guitar as an elective. after teaching myself a little bit, and I was able to hone my skills in the class. So it was really a very broad education where I was able to explore a lot of things and have my first experiences performing in large-scale productions in a similar way that I do now as a professional, which is honestly I couldn't be more grateful for.
Absolutely. It was preparing you already for the larger scene and the crowd. And I love that about how more focused you are in those schools that offer such programs. Was there a possibility for you to express a little bit of your Puerto Rican heritage there, or was it more classic?
That's an interesting question. So I wasn't expecting the curriculum once I got there. I was a teenager. I hadn't formally taken any vocal instruction before attending LaGuardia. And when I arrived, we were given an Italian art song on our first day of voice class, and we learned how to translate it. We learned how to pronounce it using IPA, International Phonetic Alphabet, and we learned classical technique for singing it. And then we continued to learn songs in French and in German, and eventually musical theater in our later education. But it was mostly centered around European classical music. And it wasn't until my undergraduate education that I began to explore classical music in Spanish art song, zarzuela, Spanish operas in Spanish. And that was a way to integrate my culture into my profession and education.
I love that. Is opera for you, was it for you obvious rather than, for example, the traditional singing? I mean, the singing traditional is not traditional, but the singing we can expect to listen to, on Spotify. What got you to pick opera?
I suppose it was being trained classically through high school. And I did have the background of singing with my family, music that I just loved and would sing for fun. Mm-hmm. I also, I'm a big musical theater fan and would sing that before I started studying formally as well. But I feel like my background of singing music like, 50s, love songs and musical theater and a little bit of jazz and things like that contributed to my transition into different genres now, mm-hmm. later on in my career. But opera, once I started studying formally, just felt the most amazing in my voice. Everything that I had sang before that also felt good in different ways, but physically, dramatically, intellectually, opera just provided me so much to explore. Yes. So that was what made me gravitate toward it.
And this is maybe a question because I'm not 100% familiar with opera, but is opera the interpretation of existing songs, or can we create our own songs with opera?
That's such a great question. So opera is a long tradition of storytelling, theatrical storytelling at a grand scale. So the singing is at a grand scale. The costumes traditionally are at grand scale. The set design, the theaters and venues, everything in opera is as big as it can possibly be. And it's evolved in many ways over the centuries to our modern conceptions of contemporary opera, which are often more minimal, yes. and can contain more modern storytelling and relevant stories to our current life, as opposed to fairy tales or stories about aristocracy and things like that.
Yes.
So it's evolved a lot over the years, but and there's still many operas being written today, but we're still performing the traditional ones that have been popular for centuries, such as The Marriage of Figaro, such as Carmen, such as The Magic Flute, things that we kind of might hear on the radio or in commercials. And yeah, it's a beautiful tradition.
So opera has evolved to become a little more contemporary, like you mentioned. When you decide to create a show for opera, do we have to include multiple singers for the show? Or can one just stand and go over multiple songs that she or he has written?
That's a great question. It depends.
I'm feeding my curiosity right here. This is why I was excited to have you here sitting with me because...
Thank you for being curious. It depends on the type of company or production that is putting it on. So a traditional performance of an opera, you will audition for a company and they have a set number of productions they're putting on during their season.
Okay.
And they're seeking to cast you in different roles. And most companies now will have a mix of traditional and contemporary opera or even musical theater in their seasons. And yes, they put together a large cast and ensemble to put on the entire show with costumes, performing with an orchestra in a theater or opera house. And there's also different types of performances that I've been fortunate to do with companies throughout the city where we'll do things like a showcase. I recently did a showcase last week with a company called Off-Brand Opera, where we were showcasing contemporary opera scenes, so excerpts of new operas that have been written by composers, and us singers were collaborating to bring the music to life and to act out the scenes in collaboration with directors who were assigned to them. And this is a very beautiful process of being able to see opera in a more intimate setting and create it in a smaller collaboration that's also just as powerful.
That is wonderful. So not only there is songwriting involved, but there is also a script behind it.
Yes, occasionally. A lot of operas have scripts or have spoken text or lines. Some operas have the entire thing sung the whole way through, and those lines will be, instead of being spoken, will be recitative. So there'll be a tradition of singing that sounds like speech, and is typically in different languages.
With what physical ability separates you from a regular singer, for example?
Wow. As an opera singer?
Yes.
It's a lot of training the voice and physicality over many years. Okay. It's training your core muscles, your lungs, your lower support muscles, the muscles in your jaw and your larynx, and things like your vocal cords. It's everything working together physiologically that you have to have mastery and control of, but at the same time a level of freedom in order to allow the voice to fully emerge.
Yes.
So while we want to work on, our coordination of all of these muscles and our organs, we still want to have the flexibility that we need to let our voice fully come out.
It's a little bit of an athletic practice.
Absolutely.
Yes, because it's demanding physically, but at the same time, the artistry behind it is also very much required, especially in the way you express yourself, because this is your identity. So, and I kind of know the answer, but I still want to ask you, have you ever thought about doing anything else? It could be it could be still artistic, like it could be dancing or acting, or you do a little bit of acting as well. I mean, while singing, but I mean, it could be that, or it could be something completely different.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. I mean, any artistic discipline I've always been just curious about. And I love that being an artist has given me so many opportunities to learn and explore different aspects of different types of art and cultures. And yes, I have felt called to explore salsa dancing. I've felt called to sing different types of music and play instruments like the piano and the guitar. And those things, exploring those different types of art, have only made me a better singer and a better performer in the field of opera as well.
You did explore other options, but he brought you back to opera singing, and he reinforced your presence as a singer. I love that. It's wonderful how, this is the thing, is the tools that everything that you learn when you're an artist will serve you at some point.
Absolutely.
This is one of the only field where it's like that. It's and you also went to the Royal Academy of Music in London.
I did.
Do you want to tell us more about it? First of all, you left the United States, you went abroad. This was a new environment for you. And how was also your time over there?
Absolutely. It was always a dream of mine to live outside of my home city for at least 1 year. And I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to attend Royal Academy. I enjoyed my experience living in London so much, and I learned so much while I was there. It was fascinating to just be immersed in a different culture, to do a bit of traveling through other parts of Europe and the UK while I was there. And it taught me a lot about taking care of myself as a performer. I developed, routines that I maintain to this day while I was studying there. It was an honor to learn from my teacher there, Caitlin Hallcup, who taught me so much about training the voice in a holistic way. It was...
Can you tell us more about it?
Yes. So
the holistic part.
Yes.
Because you've used 2 times now. You mentioned that there is a holistic training available. And can you tell us more about what that encompasses?
Absolutely. So Caitlin was the first teacher who really encouraged me to think about my body and my physical health and mental health, as well as my vocal health and stamina and mastery.
Yes.
So she would talk to me about things like being curious about the way that I'm walking as I, come from the train and I'm walking to school. I'm curious about my posture, curious about the way that I am standing as I'm about to go into an audition room. And learning to be mindful of all of these things with my body as an instrument has taught me to have an awareness, not just as a performer, but an awareness of how I carry myself in the world as a woman.
Yes.
And developing routines that serve my body and mental health overall, like yoga as well, and, things that serve me.
Is there some, for example, nutrition part of it that's involved as well? Yes?
Absolutely, yes. I'm always mindful, try to be as mindful as I can about what I eat, about what I drink. I will mostly drink water, anything that I know is going to dehydrate me or make me feel not so great later on, I try to stay as clear from as possible. Because I know that it will impact how my body feels, how my mind feels, and then how my voice is going to feel and perform later on.
So your body is your instrument, and I mean not only your throat or your vocals. You need to be aware and take care of your body entirely to make sure that and this is this is your instrument, as you mentioned, of work. So it's a difficult discipline, right?
Yes.
Is it difficult on the mind long term, or is it something that you do knowing that you've done it your whole life and it's just part of you now?
In some ways, the process becomes part of you. And I've loved refining my process over the years of approaching new music or a new role, doing the research of that role, learning as much as I can about the culture that character comes from and all the idiosyncrasies of their mind and their intentions throughout the show that I'm performing. But yeah, there's also a lot of room for flexibility and learning new things as well.
You mentioned last time during our last conversation that you felt underrepresented as a woman. And it was important for you to continue because it became also a mission and a vision for you as, you know, a woman to be part of this journey that you're on right now. Can you tell us more why do you think that is? We would think that maybe singing is I mean, in my mind, I'm sorry I cut you, but in my mind, I didn't see opera being dominated by males rather than females, or just not being represented.
Oh, that's very true. The majority of well, there's actually some interesting data on this that I saw recently, that there are typically more roles in opera for men rather than women.
Really?
And the field is a bit more competitive for women in general, as there are many more of us competing for more limited casting.
I see.
And yes, just in the way that women's stories have traditionally been told in opera and film and other media as well. You know, women are typically either sexualized or victimized in some way, or maybe softened in a certain way, and perhaps not empowered to tell their full stories.
Okay.
And I've worked, for example, with my current teacher, Andrea Del Giudice, who's an incredible director as well as vocal instructor. And what part of her mission as a storyteller is to tell women's stories through opera from an empowered perspective. So retelling stories from the female lens, where in operas where she may typically have stereotype around her, or where her story is not at the center.
I see. I think that I can speak for many of us that I wasn't aware of it. Once again, in general, when it comes to dancing, singing, I was under the impression, and I'm glad you cleared that out, but I was under the impression that women were maybe overrepresented, because this is often, you know, a woman nurture. She has a lot of creativity, you know. There is a lot going on with the artistic side of being a mother, of being a woman, sorry. So realizing that the situation is the way it is right now, especially in the, is it in the singing industry in general, or is it mainly in opera?
I think in general, it's not necessarily that women are underrepresented. We have many more opportunities and outlets than we did maybe even decades ago. However, I think the experience of being a woman and being historically silenced or underrepresented, particularly coming from certain cultures, is something that we're continuing to surpass.
Yes.
In terms of our expression, in terms of our opportunities, in terms of our leadership, and how we show up in the world in general in an empowered way.
Yes. How do you cope with fatigue, burnout, especially vocal fatigue and some of the setbacks that we can imagine for a singer to be difficult, for you to perform?
Oh my goodness. Yes, that's something to always be mindful of. And I've learned, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have been able to learn my body and learn its rhythm, be able to tell when I'm too tired, when I need to rest, when I need to take a step back, or when my body needs more or less of certain things. It's almost like an internal alarm system now.
You know the symptoms,
yes,
and you know how to tackle them at the source before it gets bad. It's inevitable, right? Mm-hmm. So I've thought about asking you if there was a magic trick or a little recipe or some tips that you're giving to each other in the industry.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's always remedies like, ginger tea and, steam. And, I'm personally a fan of cough drops, things like that. And I have a number of remedies that I'll do when I'm sick. But I feel like for professional vocal health and just vocal health in general, it's in combination with self-care, it's also vital to have consistent training and, continue to work those muscles and have them be able to show up for you. And, typically that involves the help of a mentor, a team, people that you really trust with the health of your voice.
Training your voice diminishes the risks as well of maybe having a vocal burnout.
Yes,
and okay,
absolutely.
All right.
So vocal training will just teach you to be more aware and teach you what can be more flexible or maybe needs more help within your body in order to avoid getting to those points, vocal fatigue, or strain, stress, things like that.
Yes. Oh, wow. All right. That is actually an eye-opening conversation for me, because indeed we know when we look at you, and especially here with Broadway, and I go to a lot of Broadway shows, so I am looking at them and I know there is a lot involved in it, but you made me realize this is an ongoing work and an everyday routine that you have to implement into to make sure that you're also protecting your health and being able to perform. So it really goes both ways. You mentioned that you are also a multi-genre vocalist, right? And now that we are talking about how much you have to take care of your health, how do you manage going from a genre to another, right? Technically, on a technical level.
Wow, that's a great question. It's for sure a practice, an ongoing practice, and I'm still refining it as I'm developing my technique in different genres and picking up others as well. It's definitely a matter of, again, being able to take a step back if I'm over practicing, if I know that I'm getting tired. But it's also a cool opportunity to, if I feel creatively stagnant in one genre, to be able to explore another that may be less vocally taxing and just feels like it's for fun.
And you're also part of Arturo's, and I like to have my notes on this because I don't want to butcher the name, but you're part of Arturo's O'Farrell Bronx X and Banda, thank you.
Bronx Banda, yes.
Bronx Banda, thank you. And that involves blending Latin jazz, right, and storytelling.
Yes.
I would like to hear your input on how important music is as a vehicle, for storytelling.
Yes, absolutely. So the Bronx Banda and working with Arturo O'Farrell has been such a significant honor in my career so far. We started during the pandemic, right at the beginning of 2020, right before it hit. And we did our initial songwriting process virtually over Zoom. And our compositions are based on oral histories of different musicians and artists who are from the Bronx or have been based in the Bronx for their careers. And this music has been an opportunity to tell those stories and really honor the culture of the Bronx. And yeah.
I love that. I love it. This is what we are doing here too. Storytelling is, and I think I mentioned that during our previous conversation, every civilization had storytelling at the center of teaching. The younger generations, and was the school system we have right now in the academic way of teaching, we forgot about the storytelling part.
Yes.
And growing up, and I know that I'm again talking for a lot of people out there as well, music has really raised me. I mean, I have zero talent whatsoever, but it didn't prevent me from trying. There is something about waking up in the morning and just listening to a song. And I deplore a little bit the fact that, unfortunately, the music industry is not what it used to be, in a sense where there was a lot more of storytelling. I'm right now going to speak, for example, about, what's going on in the world and wars and things like that. Mm-hmm. Back in the days, you had a lot of activism through singing and just art in general, right? Mm-hmm. If you think about Bob Marley, if you think about, a lot of Bob Dylan, and all the people that a lot of singers had a message. Mm-hmm. And once again, growing up, I remember being very down sometimes and not understanding the world and songs and just art in general, could be painting. And once again, I know that I'm speaking for a lot of people out there, made a world of difference. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a message of hope. It's a message of, it's a collective mind. Singing has that it's a beautiful wave of love. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely adore the fact that there are still dedicated artists like you who are giving their all and are very authentic on the scene. So this is also why I was very excited to interview you. It was very important for me to have someone like you represent the music industry. And you've stepped forward in your career because you started your own business. You opened For the Muses studio. Congratulations.
Thank you.
They're ready for that. And you're also a teaching artist, right? And a coach and a vocal coach. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. Yes. So I have been a vocal coach and teaching voice for a few years, and I am honored to be a teaching artist with Casita Maria as well. So the Bronx Banda that I sing with is under the umbrella of the amazing history of Casita Maria and what they've provided in terms of arts education for nearly a century. So I am a teaching artist there. I teach choir and musical theater. And I also love working with adult women in different areas, whether they're singers, actors, or they haven't performed for years and they would love to get back to it, or they've never even thought about it, but they know that they would like to reclaim their voice or reconnect to their voice in some way.
This is not only for singers, right?
No, I work with singers, yes, but I've also worked with nurses and connected with with therapists, people who say to me, oh, like I used to sing when I was younger and I'm just getting back into it now, or I just, thought that it would be nice to explore again. And it's so interesting to hear these women's journeys with singing and just have awareness around how much unlearning there can be to do as women around expressing our voices. Even me as a professional singer, when I'm training and practicing, I'll notice tensions within my body that have built up from different experiences that I will have to release in order to be able to express my voice as fully as I can. And I feel like that is something that translates no matter what your profession is.
Would you consider that expressing your voice is as much the gift of singing than actually speaking in your everyday life?
Yes, I think it can be both. The more I've trained and the more comfortable I've gotten in my voice as a singer, the more comfortable I've gotten in my voice as a person as well.
So you would recommend it to anybody who's looking to find their voice?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, whether you are looking to explore a different style of singing that you maybe thought that you shouldn't pursue. Or even if you are someone who finds yourself in meetings with your company and you're afraid to speak up even when you know you have a good idea. So I feel like it can serve in all of those aspects.
That is wonderful. What do you think that people are not more in tune into expressing themselves through singing in general, and just learning once again how to express their own voice? If it's not through the actual art of singing, it would be indeed, like you mentioned, speaking in front of a large crowd and vice versa.
Absolutely. Yeah. So a great example of this is recently there was a film about the opera singer Maria Callas, the very famous
I've watched
diva.
it.
Oh, you have?
You asked me if I had, and I said no the first time, but I watched it after.
Wow.
Yes, I did.
What were your thoughts?
You know, I love how they're talking about the artist herself, really what she went through. And I mentioned before how much of singers, most of their identity is really through the power of their voice, right? And when she lost it, she lost a little bit of herself.
Absolutely.
And just going through the journey with her was very powerful.
Yes. Oh, so powerful. And that honestly is so relatable to me as a singer, even during times when I have maybe had laryngitis and lost my voice temporarily. It really impacts your identity in a certain way. But I believe that that's the case for everyone's voice, because it's so connected to us. And it was fascinating to me to watch interviews of Angelina Jolie explaining her process of training for the role as a singer, someone who had never really sang opera before and didn't consider it a part of her. It was wild that she said in one of her interviews, I believe, I think everyone should skip therapy for a year and take opera classes. And
there you go.
It really struck me because I was like, wow, if that's how she feels as someone, who didn't consider herself a singer before, those are the benefits that she feels she's gotten from that process.
And this is also why you're here. You really wanted to bring awareness to the benefits of singing. And I can absolutely respect that, because it's something that needs to be known, and there needs to be more artists taking on not just their own careers or training professional people, but really seeing the holistic side of singing, and how much, like you mentioned, it can compare to therapy, because it's expressing yourself on such a deep and personal level. It takes self-trust. It takes that you need to trust the person you have in front of you. You don't have to be afraid to be ridiculed, or there is so much going on that we go through in our everyday life, and this is just very much present, and we kind of bury that inside of us. But when it comes to singing, there's no more hiding.
Yes, absolutely.
And this is the practice. This is why I admire the practice enormously, and I adore what you're doing. And I really hope that a lot of people will take this path in life and decide to express themselves artistically, because it doesn't take... You don't have to be a singer. Once again, you don't have to be a good voice to just want to express yourself. And I think I mentioned last time with you, growing up, I was often in a retirement home with my mother, because she works there. And at the time, it was a small retirement home, and I knew all the residents there. I was basically playing with them all the time, and they were telling me stories about, World War II and when they were young and many things. And sometimes I remember as a child coming in their bedrooms to play with them, and it's almost as if they couldn't recognize me anymore. There was just this moment where, unfortunately, with old age, you start to lose a little bit your memory. So I grew up watching few of my friends, sometimes not remembering that I was their friends. But there is something that was awesome is that when a song played, regardless if they still had their memory or not, there's just this spark in their eyes. They remembered that time. This is the power of music. It carries in your memory dear moments that nobody can take away from you, not even Alzheimer or any mental, condition that you might have.
Absolutely.
And this is also why for me, and I have the chills right now because I remember that time where I could see somebody who maybe, once again, didn't remember everything we were to each other, and then the music or something would play, and then I could see them going back to the moment where they listened it for the first time or what made them happy. And this is why for me this is more than therapy. It's a long-term solution.
Yes,
this is really how I see it. You're not just emptying your bag, you're carrying with you a very precious moment. So yeah, this is my advertisement for you. This is how much I believe in it, really.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank
you.
And
it's tell us a little more about a typical program with you.
Absolutely. So I will typically work one-on-one, either in person or online with students. And I have 3 different programs at the moment for women who, so one is for women who either used to sing and they want to reconnect with it, or they're looking to explore a creative outlet. Second program is specifically for performers, actors or singers who would like to explore different genres while refining their technique in their current genre. And they would like to do that in a holistic and creatively fulfilling way. And the third program is for women in leadership who would like who would like to explore a new approach to emotional regulation, showing up in an empowered way for their teams, and in improving their public speaking and confidence as well.
I love it. And what kind of results do you see? And I'm going to take just the example of women right now, because this speaks a lot to the audience who want to empower their voice as a leader.
Yes, absolutely. So as a leader, I've seen students of mine say that they felt more comfortable speaking up, or that they went from only being comfortable to with singing in their car to then feeling more comfortable to sing in front of peers, or just be more outspoken in general, that they felt more empowered to have difficult conversations or to advocate for themselves. And those are really
that
the
is
biggest
wonderful.
impacts I've seen.
It's wonderful. It's an option. I'm really hoping that women are going to start to pursue more and more, even though if it's combined with therapy or with coaching. And I think that all of these practices will serve them anyways. But it's very exciting. And do you see a little bit of shyness at first, or do you feel, yes?
Oh, yes.
How do you work with women who are not feeling comfortable the first time?
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, it's understandable. I know that our voice is such a vulnerable thing.
Yes.
And off the bat, my studio is a judgment-free zone. I am here as your coach to see the best in you and just bring as much of that out as possible. And yes, we don't judge if there's any like wrong notes or cracking or anything like that. I don't take a typical, stereotypical disciplined approach in that way. There is discipline. However, there's also a lot of freedom that I want to encourage.
Okay.
In that even the sounds that we think are ugly will just give us information on, what we might not want to continue or what we can release.
Okay. That sounds exciting. Mm-hmm. You personally, is there any type of roles or dream role you're pursuing right now?
Absolutely. So there's always Carmen, which is a role that I've studied and have explored in my repertoire. I'm also looking at different repertoire of the Romantic era, such as Octavian in Der Rosenkavalier, as well as contemporary works such as Jake Hagee's If I Were You. At the moment, I'm refining my opera repertoire, so exploring different things there.
I love it. And how do you commit to those roles and then having your business on the side? Yes.
Oh my goodness. It's definitely a process, especially, with doing a lot of detailed language work. I forgot to mention I'm adding more Spanish rep into my repertoire as well. So I'm exploring Spanish language, trying to improve my Spanish speaking along the way. Doing translations, research, all of that while maintaining the rest of the work. It requires a lot of balance, a lot of awareness of limits and schedules and things like that. But it's also, I find that the two things feed each other and each inspire me in each direction.
I agree. You know what? I was thinking while you were mentioning Spanish representation, is Spanish is commonly used in opera? Not so much, right?
It's not one of the more, traditional languages that opera is performed in, but yes, there's a very rich and vast tradition of Spanish opera and zarzuela, which is the Spanish tradition of opera. It's only developing more into like Spanish grand opera, Spanish art song. It's a beautiful, beautiful repertoire to explore.
I can't wait. I know Italian, French, and German were the main languages, and maybe Latin as well, yes, in the oldest repertoire that you mentioned, back in Europe with the aristocracy, they used it a little more. But indeed, Spanish was not as represented as it should, because it's a beautiful romantic language. I'm really looking forward to the era where Spanish will take on opera, and then nothing can stop it, I think, after that.
Yes, absolutely. No, I'm looking forward to it as well. I was really excited to see last year at the Met the opera Florencia en el Amazonas premiere, which was, a Spanish opera. I believe the first to premiere at the Met for 100 years or something like that. So I'm just looking forward to seeing even more.
And I think it will give probably a second breath to opera, because the Spanish community is a community who is very in tune with their culture, their language, and singing and dancing, as we talked about. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. Yeah. Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Would you be open to sing us a short song that comes into your mind or you feel comfortable singing right now?
Sure.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I haven't warmed up today, admittedly, but I could sing a little something. And, if I am going to sing, I would love to ask you, Sarah, would you be open to maybe doing some singing with me afterward?
Some singing, you are going to teach me, to train me as a student who wanna, because I have, guys, I don't have any singing background. I just want to put that out there.
No, so if you're open to it.
I'll be open to it as a student, so you know what to expect while working with Kayla.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
I will sing a bit of Carmen. It's an aria that people might recognize, so I'll sing some of that.
Okay.
Et c'est bien overcome la belle, s'il lui convient d'une physique. Rien ne fait maintenant son prix, la parle bien l'autre cité. Et c'est l'autre que je préfère, il n'a rien dit, mais il me plaît.
That was amazing! Oh my God! much.
Thank
You have a powerful organ.
Thank you so much.
I'm really hoping that you'll get all to hear it the same way I did, but obviously being here,
Thank you.
it was wonderful. And in French.
Yes.
I heard it.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
We will write also, and this is going to have to be updated, but whenever, please, you will perform somewhere, or if you learn about new dates, send it to me.
Absolutely.
I'll add it to the podcast, so regardless of when the people will listen to this episode, they'll get to look you up and see where you're at right now, and then hopefully come and see you, because wow.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much.
All right, let's go for I'm very intimidated right now. Maybe I should have one first and then let you sing after.
No, hardly. No intimidation needed. I mean, but this is me working for many years, but anyone has the potential to sing in that way, I believe.
The room was vibrating.
Thank you.
Okay, give me something very simple and easy, please.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Okay, let's see. Can we start with just a simple ooh? Ooh.
Okay, so it has to go up and come back?
Yes. Ooh.
Ooh.
Terrible. Sarah, that was beautiful. Oh my goodness. It was beautiful. I'm curious, do you have a song that you like that's your favorite, or?
No, really, it's I wouldn't even remember a full sentence of a song. I mean, yes, I would, but with a little bit of stress right now, I would not be able to sing it. It's like my hands are already shaking up.
I'm curious, where does that come from for you? What makes you feel nervous about it?
Oh, I'm absolutely not the type of being, on stage and performing, or even maybe acting, because talking is something that we do on an everyday basis. So I can rely a little more, and emotions are something that once again it's a little more easy to express. But singing, you mentioned it, you said it earlier, very vulnerable. Yes.
That's fair.
So, but this is how they start. They start with some vocals like that, and then they evolve into an actual song.
Yes. So we'll start with very simple warm-ups, and then we will explore a repertoire that either you might be familiar with, that you might want to learn how to sing, songs that you love, and we'll go off from there.
It was really fun, although it's a little bit stressful because it kind of triggers some sort of reaction, like this is an unknown territory. It's I can feel it right now already. It's relaxing.
Yes, it can be very relaxing.
Yes,
even in the midst of the training, and it's so funny because I do see it oftentimes in my young students as well. So it's interesting to work with adult women through this process while I'm teaching young students as a teaching artist, because I can kind of see where these things start in my younger students. Like I can see them starting to be shy or like afraid to start singing, and it's interesting to work with both types of student on how to release that.
Yes, I agree. Now that you're talking about it, I think it would be an amazing exercise for children in general, especially maybe children who struggle with, just feeling confident, or maybe just once again finding their voice. And you mentioned about leadership, and we often picture leadership as somebody who manages a team, who is already placed in a leadership role. Yes. But leadership for children is very important, so they can also, feel strong.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
In their journey of becoming adults. And also feel comfortable in their own skin, especially in a world where they're challenged every day on their, identity, and they're trying to fit in so hard. Having something that belongs to them like that is so I think that will be a wonderful way for parents, yes, to help reinforce once again, their children's self-esteem. That's great.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you something, and we are at the end of the 60 minutes. It went by so fast, and I want to thank you again for being here. I want to ask you, can you give a tip to the audience? If somebody is looking to reclaim their voice, what would that be?
It would be that your voice matters, and it contains the stories of you, and those stories deserve to be told, and your voice deserves to be expressed. Your thoughts deserve to be expressed and heard, and you deserve to impact the spaces that you exist in. So any woman who wanted to reclaim their voice, I would say that your voice contains the stories of your life, and it deserves to be heard. Your ideas deserve to be heard, and you deserve to express yourself to the fullest. And on another note, us as women deserve the same care and confidence that we teach to our children. So these educational opportunities are not just for our young ones, but for us into our adulthood as well.
Thank you, Kayla. Thank you so much for being here today once again and sitting with us and making sure that your story is heard, but also sharing all this wisdom with the audience and the fun time we had together. Thank you very much. Once again, if you want to reach out to Kayla, please make sure that you read the description down below, because the links to her contact information will be right there, and make sure you do it, because this is just a transformative experience. Thank you so much, everybody.
Have a good one. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Until next time, stay bold, stay brilliant, and keep building your own success story. If you loved what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it.